Hello, welcome to another episode of the Blue Mountain Makes podcast. I'm MarylinnS, coming to you as always from the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, where I live with my husband, my many dogs, and a couple of chickens. I'm getting ready to go on vacation tomorrow. Today's Friday. So I am catching up with this last podcast before I go, kind of sharing what I'm planning to work on while I'm gone. And what my plans are. So back to our normal thing. My last video I did a fall plans video, and in typical me fashion, the one thing that I have newly cast on is not part of my fall plans. So we'll talk about that in a minute. So I have 2 finished objects and 3 works in progress, and 1 show and tell for some spun fiber that I'm working on. So let's get into it. Okay, my first thing. Let's start on a positive note. My 2 finished objects are 2 very different feels. One is very positive, one's very negative. So we'll start positive. My positive finished object is my Attune shawl. Ta-da! This is a pattern by Andrea and Mowry. I participated in the Spin It to Knit It Attune. Whatever. It's a very long hashtag because she's done a couple different Spin It to Knit It's now. So I spun the yarn for this. I knit this. My original plan was to make it much bigger than it is currently. It's not tiny, but it's not a schlanket either. So my original plan with this was to use 2 balls each of the main color and the contrast color. The main color is 8 ounces total of undyed Polworth in this nice white color, and my contrast color was I spun up 8 ounces of Malabrigo Noob, which was a nightmare to spin. I've talked about it in my previous podcasts, but it's because it comes so densely packed, the fiber, when you pull it out, I pulled it out, I shook it out, I pre-drafted, I steamed it to relax the fiber. That braid is so tight, and I guess it's just how they package it in the factory, since it's, it's hand dyed, but it's factory dyed. I mean, it's mass produced, I guess I should say. It hurt my hands. I had to take Advil to get to sleep at night because my wrist hurt so bad from pulling, and just, even with the pre-draft. So I told myself I would not ever buy it again, but I know myself and I'll probably buy it again. But I think if I buy it again, my husband has a 3D printer, and he's been looking up the handle of a carder, the hand carders. So he's going to print a plastic carder handle and then slot nails into it. And if I buy Malabrigo Noob ever again, I'm going to actually card the fiber, which could go horribly wrong because I've never carded anything. But anyways, all that to say, it spun up beautifully after it was done. So this is technically the wrong side, but I am in love with the colors on this shawl. I would not have ever gone into a store and picked out brown, purple, and this dusky blue for myself, but I love it. And the way that it came together sort of reminds me of beachy colors, especially up here. So yeah, this part makes me think of beach colors. Purple, maybe it's the sunset or the sunrise, I don't know. But this is so soft. It is incredibly soft and squishy and nice. And my intent to use all of my fiber that I spun, I didn't. So my Polworth was actually being used a lot faster than my Malabrigo. And I'm not sure why. I didn't actually weigh. I know how much I bought, or how much I paid for, as far as ounces goes, but I didn't actually weigh it to see if the ounces that I received was more or less than what I had paid for. I imagine it's a little bit more. It usually is. But this was 1.5 skeins of the Polworth and only 1 skein of the Malabrigo. I stopped when I ran out of that first skein. Yeah. I could have made it giant. I chose not to. I won't lie. By the time I got to the end, I was kind of all right, I'm done. I've been doing a lot of, it looks like it's garter, but it's actually not. It's a pavor pattern, so I don't want to give it away, but it is all double knit. So you have your brioche and fisherman's rib. I think this is technically fisherman's rib. So everything you knit each line twice. Once with one color, once with the other color. So it gets old after a while, I won't lie. And even though it was nice to work with and it was a lot of fun to like watch the colors come out, and I'm really proud of my handspun, I was kind of done. So I called it done, and it fits perfectly. I wear these generally as a scarf, and it fits and it's perfect and it's snuggly and warm, and I love it. So I am very pleased with this final product, although what the heck is that? Oh shoot. It's, very obvious where I tied my new skein in. I have to tuck that away. Yeah, I really like it, and it doesn't matter which side shows because they're both equally beautiful, so very happy. It's going to be great in the winter. It's going to be very warm. I hope it holds up well. This will be interesting to see. So both of these I spun as a 2-ply, and I did pretty well for the most part as far as not too many thick to thin spots. But it will be interesting to see something that, it's not like it's a sweater, so it's not like it's hard use, but it'll definitely be interesting to see how it holds up over time. Yeah, very proud of this. Very happy. I should have measured it because, brioche and fisherman's rib open up a lot when they're blocked, so it was much smaller when I took it off my needles, and it grew. I knit this on a size US 4. I always forget to say that. Size 4 needles. I feel like I just want to wear it because I'm really sad about this next one, guys. Take it off. My second finished object will be ripped out. I do not like it. I'm very sad about it. It is my Arte Nuova. I always want to call it Nueve. That's not it. Arte Nuova by Unwind Knitwear. So color work, gorgeous. Looks great on the screen. Yay. It fits horribly. It looks so bad. Okay, so positive things about the pattern. It has this really cool textured detail on the shoulders all the way down the sleeves, both sides. I really like the little pop of color on the neckband, the armband, and you're probably supposed to bind off in that color, but at this point I had it because I knew it wasn't going to fit quite right. So, why don't I like this? You start on size 1.5, US 1.5 needles for the ribbing, which, very small, but it's only for like an inch, maybe, no big deal. The rest of the body is knit on size 3, so this was a lot of knitting. And I ripped the yoke out at least twice. Both times were my fault because I did not read the instructions right. It was one of those things where it's like, it's a round yoke. How hard can that be? It's not a round yoke. It is a combination raglan and round yoke, which made no sense to me as I was knitting it. I don't know why it needed to be that way. But I guess she wanted the increases to be around the motif plus in the round. I don't know. I'm not a designer. I don't know. I'm sure there was reason. Plus, there were 2 different sets of short rows in the back, which I also thought was very strange. And I said, maybe I should not do that. Did I listen? No. So your first round of short rows is right after your ribbing, like always. And the second round is, I think it's right after you split for the sleeves, I think. Not that I can tell, but I'm pretty sure that that's where that is. And as I was knitting, I was like, it's really strange. I also felt like it was really strange that the yoke was so, weirdly deep. That's a lot for a t-shirt, Not to mention in the back, it's even longer because of those short rows. But again, and it's a lot of stitches. By the time you get to where you split for the sleeves, it was a lot of stitches for a t-shirt. So that's what I don't like about it. It's a lot of fabric. It's a lot of fabric. I don't know if it's just my body type. It looks bad with my big boobs. Don't know how else to say that. And it rides way up in the back. So, you know, I feel like this is a normal amount. I mean, it goes down a little bit, but this shirt, I'm going to take a video of me wearing it. It sounds so sad when I say that. I take a video to show you what I mean. But, I mean, it comes up like, I feel like the Hunchback of Notre Dame. It's like up way high in the back and then, you know, comes down into like a crew neck in the front. But it just looks really wrong. And I know that most things are cropped these days as far as like a regular, the called for length and a pattern generally is a little bit cropped. So I added 2 inches to this and it still is too short as far as like what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to sit right at my hips and it looks not good. It looks very bad. Do love that though. Like that is very pretty. It looks really good on camera. It's a bummer. I think, what am I going to do with this? I think I'm going to rip it out. Well, I know I'm going to rip it out. And I think I'm going to use the motif. I think I'm just going to make my own regular round yoke, top down, easy t-shirt, and just get my stitch count to where it needs to be to do this at the bottom, and that'll be fun. Because this ain't it. It's just not it. I've knit one other item by her, and I think it fits, but it doesn't fit quite as well as I want it to. But I think my problem with that shirt that I made was my poor yarn choice. It was one of the first sweaters that I made. I didn't make any sweaters at all until last summer. So I don't have a whole lot that I have made, a lot of experience as far as that goes, but the other one I made is a sideways, so you cast on at the shoulder, and you knit this like really weirdly long loop, and you knit across your body to a V-neck, knit a motif, and then knit across the other side of your body. Really weird construction, but I used an alpaca blend for the main part, and then for the motif I used a pretty cheap merino, superwash merino. So the thickness of that motif really, and it's, you know, it's color work, so it draws up a little bit. It's really tight. It just kind of cinches the whole shirt up a little bit. And so I get kind of this like weird loopy thing on the edges. The structure of the yarn that I chose for the actual main body is not strong enough to support the tension and the weight of that merino. So I think that that's my problem. I do intend to also rip that one out because I used perennial yarn, which is not cheap, for my dog's one in. That's Daisy. She has to be where I'm at all times. And she's also grumbly. Anyway, so I think a lot of that was my own problem, but I'm also kind of thinking at this point that I'm just not going to buy any more of her patterns. I think that they're not designed for my style or my body type. She has gorgeous stuff. I've seen lots of really nice garments that have been knit from her patterns, and people have been very successful with it as far as I can tell. I'm not one of them. So I'm just going to let that go. But it was a lot of knitting. And it was a lot of knitting, especially because I ripped that yoke out so many times. My own fault. Learn to read. I really struggle with that. But yeah, so that's that. That's the sadness that is the finished object. Moving on. So I have 3 works in progress. 2 are new cast-ons, and 1 is basically a new cast-on because I haven't touched it since spring. So unless you've been here for a long time, it'll be new to you. So I guess let's do the shawl first. So this actually was on my fall knitting plan list. And very excited because I'm really liking how it's coming out so far. And I'm actually at a pretty decent spot to share, I say as I throw needles on the ground. Oopsies. So this is the start of my Vertices Unite by Stephen West. This is section 1. I think there's 5 sections. It is a modular, I have a hard time with that word, modular shawl. Currently I am working with 1 strand of handspun and 1 strand of Drops Baby Merino. Let's see if I can get around my, Woo. Woo. It's very pretty, and I really like it. I really like this color change. It's very subtle. So this is the second skein of that Malabrigo Noob handspun. Focus. Yeah. This was intended to go into that Attune shawl. The colors are extremely different between one skein and the next, so it was another reason why I didn't really want to like mix and match it in that Attune shawl. So this ended up being a lot darker and a lot more brown, and I'm in love with it. This is the right side. Yay! I don't know, I just really like it. It's a little bit more variegated than I thought it was going to be. I mean, you know, you can look at the skein and see it's going to be variegated, but I guess in my mind it was more of like this colorway versus now I'm in this like really super light colorway, which is fine. I'm in the decrease section of this part. So you make like a right angled triangle, you get to a point, and then you decrease sharply down, and then the next section I think I start picking up where my little bat stitch marker is. He kind of looks like the Mothman. Maybe I'll say it's the Mothman. Dunno. But anyways, that is that so far. This is US 4 needles again. Everything's fingering weight, or as close to fingering weight as this is. And my other colors are green. This is Malabrigo sock. This is also Malabrigo sock. This is leftover from my Schweik sweater. This is leftover from a different Stephen West shawl. And this is leftover Noro from my... I have no idea what that sweater's called. Meh. One of my Caitlin Hunter sweaters. So this is the only one that's not wool. These two Malabrigo are superwash. This is not superwash, and I think that the Drops Baby Merino might also be superwash. This is like a cotton. This has got a bunch of stuff in it, but it's primarily non-protein fibers, so cotton and bamboo and etc., etc. So it'll be interesting to see how they all kind of play together. And this one also is like thick and thin, so I feel like that's going to play off of my handspun pretty well. So it's not just going to be like the one section has like weirdly large spots in it. But yeah, I'm enjoying this so far. It's a very mindless, easy knit because it's all garter so far. Well, all of it's garter, but so far I haven't had to like pick up any stitches. Really, you just cast on at this tiny edge, and I think like in one night I got to like here. You just knit, 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 knit. Super nice. Very fun. Very easy. It's going to be really interesting to A, see how it comes together as you get into that like modular section, and B, it's also going to be very interesting to see how difficult it is to manage a shawl that is like, it's got like little danglies over here, and maybe it'll have a little piece over here because you're putting it together in this patchwork as you go. So that'll be interesting. Instead of, you know, making each individual section and then seaming it together, you're picking it up as you go. So we'll see. Don't know. This one's been on my list for a long, long time, so I'm glad that I am finally getting into it. I think that's all I have to say about that. Oh, I'm doing the larger. He has two options, smaller, larger. Doing the larger of the two. Because I do want this to be a Schlinkit. Okay, my next one. This is the old but kind of sort of new sweater. This is the Pink Fizz by Andrea Mowry. And it's in a really just bizarrely strange spot. I don't know how I'm going to show this to you. Sure, that's the front. And the front is done. So when I stopped this, I think I stopped in the spring. It was getting a little too hot. This is two strands of yarn held together. It's one strand of Drops Nord and one strand of Drops Kid Silk. And it got to be a bit hot to be working with mohair. So I put it down right where you split. Let's back up. The way that this is constructed, you cast on your back hem, and then you cast on your front hem, and then you put them together and you knit in the round until you get to where you split for your sleeves. You split for the sleeves, and then you knit the front panel and then the back panel, and you put them together at the shoulders, and then you have plain sleeves. It is very oversized, and I think the first like inch of your sleeve is actually technically the edge of your front and back panels, because you have like this extra kind of flap. This is part of your sleeve. So this has been a very interesting knit. I will say it was more enjoyable knitting it in the round, obviously, but the pattern on it is very, very pretty. And it's not nearly as difficult as you might think it would be. She has two different charts. So she's got the in the round chart and then the flat chart. And the way that it looks like it's a bunch of cables and stuff, but it's actually all just knit two together, slip, slip, knit. Some weird, like, pick up this stitch and drop it over the other stitches or whatever. But there's no cabling. It's all very straightforward. She's got very good instructions. I have it on my iPad, so I just, like, mark the line off as I go. And it's been pretty, knock on wood, easy so far. However, I did pick up for the back, so I'm going to start working on the back. And I'm a little concerned because I meant to make good notes and I didn't. So on the front, you have to do shoulder shaping, which I guess is kind of obvious. This is the first time I've actually like stretched it out and looked, but because it's sloping down your shoulder like that, she does some pretty dramatic shoulder shaping on the front and the back. And I don't remember what line of the chart I got to before I started that. So mistakes were made. Whoops. I will figure it out. But it's a lot of short rows to achieve that. And it's really interesting because when you're doing the short rows, you're eating into this lace pattern. So, yeah. It was interesting. I definitely had to pay attention once I got to the shoulder shaping. But that part's done. So, now I have to do the back. And then I'll be done. Once I get to the sleeves, this thing is going to fly. Oh, it's got fiber on it. This is, I want to say, on a US 6. It is US 6. It's very oversized. She's gonna be real big. Lord. I'm doing the size 2. Normally for her patterns I do a 3, but being that it's this big before it's been blocked, I have a feeling it's gonna be even bigger. Yeah. It's gonna be nice though. This is my first mohair sweater that I've ever made. It's a little... My husband hates to touch it. He's like, oh, ew, it feels gross. I like it. I think it's nice. Hopefully I'm not allergic to it. Wouldn't that be funny? I guess I would know, though, because I've been knitting with it, so I'm sure I'm not. But that'd be hilarious, wouldn't it? Finish a whole sweater with giant lace charts and then can't wear it. Yeah, my dream, though, is this and a pair of leggings and just relaxing, and it's going to be nice. I think at the end you pick up stitches around this collar and make like you do a little bit of ribbing. And that's pretty much it. And then the sleeves are just plain stockinette, so that's gonna fly. So really just kind of need to get through the back panel. I had some like real serious knitting mojo for the front, and now I'm kind of like, do I want to pick that up right now? Not really, because you do have to, like I said, keep track of everything on a chart. So yeah. And most of this was stash. Except I didn't have enough in my stash to knit this, so I have now subsequently ordered 2 separate times from Wool Warehouse, and of course then I'm like, well, if I gotta order one, I may as well order some other stuff, so I have another order coming from Wool Warehouse this week, even though I told myself I wasn't gonna buy anything until Rhinebeck. Oopsies. But what was I to do? I have to finish that sweater. That's what I tell myself. Okay, so that's that. Not a whole lot to say about it. I'll be glad when it's done, only because I've had those needles in that bag for like 4 months now, so it'll be nice to just... I think this is more like a product knit. I don't know if I'd say I'm like super in love with the process of it, but I love the way it's coming out. I just really hope it fits the way I want it to fit. anytime it's like an oversized pattern, I get a little kind of iffy, you know, because either, you know, it's going to look like cute, fun, oversized, or like I'm wearing a paper bag. Who knows? We'll find out. I don't want to have to rip that one out. All right, my last project is something I cast on specifically for my trip. And I cast this on last night, so not a whole lot of progress has been made. But if you've been around before, you know that I've been trying to make the Big Comfy Cardi by Andrea Mowry for a long time. I bought a bunch of palette wool yarn, and I didn't like it, so I ripped it out. I cast it back on again with a different textured pattern. Didn't like that. And it just sat beside my chair for like 6 months. So I finally ripped it out the other day. Had to have my husband help me because I held 2 strands together. And as I was trying to unwind it, it was a mess. It was horrible. It was a bad spaghetti noodle mess. So this is one ball. I have another one of equal size. And this was just ripped out of what I had knit already for that cardigan. That will be made in the future, but not with this yarn. I think the problem was it's such a high contrast marl that it was just too busy. It was too busy with that textured pattern. So somebody commented on my fall plans and suggested that I use this yarn for the DRK everyday sweater. And thank you for that, because that is exactly what I'm doing. It's a stockinette body sweater, so the marl is not, you know, it's not too much. It looks good. Granted, like I said, not super far into it. I think I've done the short rows and I've done 1 round of circular yoke increases. Technically, the pattern calls for a sport weight, and this is definitely a fingering weight, but she also suggested you make it on size 5 needles. So instead, I'm just going to keep knitting it on the 4s because I like the fabric that I'm getting with this. But I did go up a size, so I normally knit the size 3. I'm going to knit a size 4, so that way, she calls for like very little positive ease, 0 to like 4 inches maybe. And I don't think I want it to be that tight. So, you know, a little bit more positive ease, totally fine by me. And I'm going to knit it longer than what she calls for in the pattern because it is a crop sweater. So I have like the 2 giant balls, plus I can see 2 balls hanging out of my stash bin that is overflowing. So it'll be really nice to get this knit up and out of my stash. And because it's not color work, it's just a straightforward top down, knit it till you're done kind of sweater. This is going to be the perfect thing to take on my semi-road trip. So we are flying out tomorrow, early morning. Oh, it's not that early. The flight itself's not till like 9, but I have to be at the airport, which is an hour and a half away. I'd like to be there an hour and a half before the flight takes off. So it's a 6-hour flight from Virginia to Arizona. We're going to fly into Phoenix, where it will be 105 degrees. I hate the heat. So we're going to immediately leave Phoenix, and we're doing Sedona, Flagstaff, the Grand Canyon, Antelope Canyon, stopping in Page. Then we're going into Utah to see the Monument Valley, and driving all the way back down to Phoenix to fly out the next Saturday. So a lot of time in the car, a lot of time on planes. I don't know that I won't finish this sweater, to be honest with you. Wouldn't that be awesome? You know, it's the only thing I'm taking with me to work on. I have a book, but yeah, it's just mostly going to be knitting a sweet little sweater. So right now I have it on, they're not 9-inch circulars. I don't know what the actual inches of this. This is my preferred method for sleeves, so I'm going to take this needle. I might work on it tonight. I think I'm going to try to get it onto the needles that I'm going to use for the body of the sweater. And then I'm packing this needle, so if I get to the sleeves, I'll just knit the sleeves. And I'm not on like a timeline or anything, but it would be fun. My husband drives the whole time we're away because he gets really horrifically car sick. I swear it's not my driving, it's just him. So he doesn't mind driving, and I don't mind riding because I can just knit the whole way, and it's going to be great. But we're going to hike a lot, and we're going to be outside all the time. I'm very excited. I love the desert. I love the desert when it's not 105 degrees. at least the rest of the state, like when we get out, it's going to be like 80 in the day and 50 at night. So it's going to be perfect. So excited about that. The only other thing I have to share with you guys is my little bit of spinning show and tell. So my new wheel came in. Yay, finally. That is my matchless shock matchless spinning wheel. And I have been using double drive, which is new to me because my Kiwi only was set up for Scotch tension. So that was a little bit of a learning curve, but it wasn't too bad. However, I did not know that you're not supposed to. It's not as easy to ply in double drive as it is on Scotch tension. So I spun this skein up in double drive and then plied it in double drive, and it was a nightmare, and I was so angry by the time I was done. So this is a very loose twist on this skein of yarn, but I did it. It kept flying off the bobbin. It was getting tangled up inside. Like, I wouldn't realize that it had come off of the flyer hooks, and it would just be wrapping around the flyer or inside of, like, you know, where the actual flyer turns. It was a nightmare. And it just did it over and over and over, and yeah. And I also noticed that I can't get as much plied fiber onto a bobbin on my new wheel as I could on my old wheel. So I think what I'm going to do, because I now have a separate Lazy Kate, I think I'm actually going to apply it onto my Kiwi after my singles are done. And that way I can get a full 100 grams onto one skein, because this is only like 74, which is not a big deal. So this is part of the big sweater spin I'm doing, my first ever sweater spin. This will be for the Cosmo cardigan by Knitwear. So I have this huge ball of merino that I bought in Maryland at the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival. And I'm just going to spin it all up into a 2-ply fingering weight. And I bought some rust-colored kid silk from Wool Warehouse with this last order. So as soon as that comes in, I'm ready to cast on in theory. I have not washed or set this. I haven't washed or set this because my thought process was I'll spin them all, wash them all together, and then be ready to go from there. But I'm also thinking, since it's going to take so long for me to spin all of this and then knit it, wouldn't it make more sense to start knitting while I'm spinning? Which would mean I should have washed this. I've got like 2 sweaters on the needles. I need to just finish those, and then I'll figure out what I'm doing with this. So, again, no rush. Just getting it done as it comes along. This has been fun so far. It's been really fun learning on the new wheel, and I do like double drive. I'm just not plying on it. Oh, gosh, I wish I would have taken a video. I was so angry. I was so angry. My husband sits in here and plays games usually while I spin. And I was like, this is the worst I've felt since I started spinning. I hate this. I'm so angry. He's like, oh my gosh, you spent all that money on that wheel and you hate it? It's like, no, it's not the wheel. It's the user. It was bad. But it's fine. Because I'm just going to apply it on my Kiwi. I should practice. You're right. Yes. I can hear my mother's voice in my head. You won't learn if you don't practice. Yes, Mom, I know. So yeah. That's all I got. Yeah. So looking forward to this vacation. My poor husband, he doesn't really pay attention sometimes when I'm talking. Shame on him. But he really especially doesn't pay attention to me when I'm talking while he's also playing his game. So we have a dual setup. Like, I'm at my desk. His desk is right beside mine. So I'm trying to, like, schedule all these things. We're going across the whole state, basically. And Arizona's a lot bigger than I thought it was. Like, in my mind, it's not as far west as it is, and it's not as big as it is, but when I'm actually, like, planning this trip, I'm like, it's actually a really big state. It's going to take a long time to drive across. And we're going to, like, over here, and then back down, and then over here, and then way up here, and then way back down. So it's a lot of miles that we're going to put on this car. And we have 2 separate, like, tours that we actually have booked, and we have to be there for. Everything else is just, I know we're staying in Sedona this night, so we have to make it to the hotel at some point. We have a lot of leeway. But for these 2 tours, I have to be in a certain city at a certain time. They will leave us. It's non-refundable. That's it. And I'm telling him all these things, and I'm like, okay, so it's going to take this long to drive from point A to point B, We'll check into the hotel, blah, blah, blah. Can we make it in time? Yeah, I'm sure we can. Yeah, sure. Should have known he was not paying attention. So that was like 3 or 4 weeks ago when I scheduled all this stuff. He comes out last night and he goes, my calendar says that our tour is on Monday at 3 o'clock. And I was like, yeah, it is. He goes, but we're going to wake up in Sedona and we have to drive to Page and the tour is that day at 3 o'clock. I said, yeah, it is. I told you this. I asked you, do you think we can make it? And he's just like, what have we done? So, we might miss some stuff, but whatever. It's going to be fine. It's going to be beautiful, and we're going to be outside, and that's all I care about. So, yeah. I will see you guys in a couple of weeks. Everyone says, you'll be tan when you get back. I never tan. I went to the tropics in April, and you can't tell. This is, it stays this pale. It's going to be great. But yes, that's all I have got to show you guys today. I hope that you're doing well. I hope that wherever you are, whatever you're doing, is making you very happy. And I will see you very, very soon with another episode. Bye for now.